In my previous video on the whole Jesus freak furor, I pointed out that I thought nobody had noticed this, but obviously I believed Eden Scancer had noticed. People pointed that out to me, but anyway, I pointed out that in my opinion nobody had really focused anyway on the whole point that given the premise that was presented to Jesus Freak, it never occurred to Jesus Freak to consider the possibility that he could never be 100% sure of who or what was making this demand of him. He could conceive of an absolute certainty that God had made this demand of him, and at that point he could not conceive thinking about the possibility, what if I'm wrong? What if I am mistaken in what I think is being asked of me? And I use that to point out that a sane person, somebody who has their wits together, would always ultimately have to refer to their own sense of morality, their own innate sense of morality, in order to decide what they should do. Anyway, that is elaborated on in my video. Nobody noticed this. In this video I just want to come back to one thing that was mentioned in my video, and I thought it was a very interesting one. Apparently there's a user out there called Conference Report, and he or she posted a video presenting a similar sort of dilemma, but phrased in such a way that an atheist could get their head around it, so to speak. A user called Wonderpope pointed this out to me. And this is what Conference Report's scenario is, according to Wonderpope. He said, the premise is there is a hypothetical computer that could predict the future and compute the actions to maximize humanity's well-being. The algorithm is 100% verified. Use that as a basis. And if such a computer would say you have to kill your daughter in order to prevent a horrible event to be happening in 60 years times, that might happen with a 99% chance of probability, and it would possibly kill 1 billion people, what would you do? And I think this is a perfect example of illustrating why no matter how hypothetical a scenario is that is being presented to you, you can never, ever ignore the nature of reality. And that is what I pointed out in my previous video, where I was saying Jesus Freak would have to be insane, in the most colloquial sense of the word anyway. He'd have to be insane to even consider the possibility that he could know this with 100% certainty. And the same sort of rationale applies to this scenario. Let's look at the nature of reality and what the premise is actually setting out. This premise is presenting me with a choice to make. And the choice is you kill your child, or else in 60 years time, with 100% certainty, or 99% certainty anyway, 100% guaranteed algorithm, there's going to be a disaster. You know, this will accumulate or culminate in a disastrous scenario in which 1 billion people will die unless you kill your child. Now let's take one step back from the premise and see what is actually being asked. The question, the premise, is based on this machine presenting me with a choice to make. Obviously, the underlying premise to that is that I have the capacity to make a choice. Now, I am in no way unique, and that is a very important consideration. Here is a machine that claims to have the ability to calculate with an extreme sense of precision the probability that in 60 years' time 1 billion people will end up dying as a result of my actions. Remember, we're in a world of 6 billion people, 6 billion plus people, who are all, presumably, in the same position as myself, with the same ability to make choices. All of these choices will contribute in some way in what is going to be happening in 60 years' time. So even if I accept the premise that I have this free will, that I have this choice, that this is available to me, I, as a sane human being, have to assume that this sort of ability, this sort of possibility is open to everybody else. So there are 6 billion plus people and their descendants, whoever is going to be born in the next 60 years, who are all making decisions that are contributing to what might or might not happen in 60 years' time. So for a machine to tell me then that my decision will culminate in the deaths of 1 billion people has to be a lie. This is a responsibility that cannot be laid on the shoulders of one single human being. This is the way reality works. And from that perspective, I would have to reject that premise out of hand. And again, this comes back then to ultimately me having to decide based on my own moral sense what I should or shouldn't do, and I know what I would tell that machine where it could stick its recommendation. The alternative, of course, is that I do accept the premise. I accept the premise that this machine can calculate with this extreme level of certainty what is or isn't going to happen. But I'm going to then apply that same certainty, that same ability of this machine to predict what is or isn't going to happen, what every other of these 6 billion people is going to decide at any point in the next 60 years. I'm going to apply that rationale to myself. And I'm going to reason out that in that circumstance, this machine will already know what I will decide. It has already decided what I am going to decide, because I am no less predictable than any other human being on this planet. If it can predict what the other 6 billion are going to do, it can predict what I'm going to do. So I must therefore assume that this machine already knows that what my response to its question is going to be, and again, I can therefore ignore its dire predictions and revert back to my own sense of morality and again tell the machine where to stick its demand. It already knew that that's what I was going to say. That is a sane way of looking at a hypothetical scenario like the one that was just presented to me, and similarly like the one that was presented to Jesus Freak. There is no free lunch.